Welcome back. Hey, it's Wayne. Let's talk some games. As I'm sure y'all have heard that Sony's going to be discontinuing physical disc moving in January 2028, and that brought the physical versus digital conversation back to the forefront. And before we get into how I feel about the matter, let's talk about the post itself because I really feel it was a really disassociated inhumane way to even share something that you knew was going to be impactful to your consumer base, because it was a tweet of a blog post of their website. Now, you didn't even have enough decency to look us in the eyes via camera and say this, knowing it was going to cause a big stir in the pot, right? Which is crazy because y'all were bold with that advertisement about sharing games over Xbox, right? But here, when you're following suit in their digital practices, you're AFK just posting a blog post, low key, hidden, right? Alright. And since that announcement, a lot of Nintendo fans online have been turncoating, giving praise to the game keycards, that they're the last form of quote unquote physical media. And yeah, no, not really. Yes, it's a nice middle ground between physical and digital. You could still get the resale and trade value, but on a practicality stance, it doesn't really save you any space. And the prices of storage just shot up. Like last time I bought my terabyte from GameStop for 200, 180 on sale. I just checked the other day. It's going for 300. 300. 100 and change more, you might as well go get another system. And that's just to store the games, right? And a terabyte might seem like a lot on the Nintendo platform, but now that we're getting higher tier games and better third parties, nah, bro. Like, Street Fighter itself is around 50 gigs, no DLC. Final Fantasy Part 1 and 2 are 90 apiece. Let's not even get into that. And naturally, as games get better and more advanced over time, they're going to require more space. And sad to say, like, not to nostalgia trip too hard, but I come from the cloth of midnight releases, the tail end of that, like being able to wait outside 11:59, maybe even get there like 10:30 early if there's a line for a really high game, and post up to get your physical copy midnight in person just to lock it in, right? And now it comes to a point where having digital pre-orders, and honestly that don't really make sense to me. Like, there's certain games or certain developers, or they'll give you a bonus, maybe it's an in-game item or extra stage or cosmetics, which is cool, I guess. If you're a super fan, I get it. But like, for the most part, pre-ordering a digital game really don't make sense to me. And GTA 6 kind of like solidified that in my head, because even the pre-orders for the physical are just a code in box. Dog, like, we might run out of boxes. We might. But are we gonna run out of codes and digital copies? I hope not. And I'm not one to be anti-digital. At this point, most of my library, if not like 97% of it, is digital. There's about a good handful of games I'm looking out and picking up physical. Like, my biggest gripe and my biggest headache I see coming forward with this like shift into digital, and not to give nobody too crazy ideas, but that whole Pokemon card scalping wave, investment wave that's over on that side is gonna come over to Switch games and physical gaming. And it's a headache, bro, because I come from that cloth of like, if you didn't get a game day one at full price, you could wait like maybe 2, 3, 5 months and you're gonna catch it for the low. Even if it's not on a developer sale or a publisher sale, you're gonna see it out in the wild for the low. And that's something that, even in its own right, like, there's so many different ways and avenues to gaming, because there's a lot of different access points, even between retro gaming. Like, the fact that retro games have shot up in price and modern TVs and modern monitors and screens don't really support it. Like, oftentimes than not, you have to get a third party adapter to even connect the device, right? And you would think with that little bit of headache or that outdated technology, it'd be easier to get on the low. Prior to 2020, 2021, I'd say like it was that case. You could go to a mom and pop used game shop and find a GameCube for like 40, 60, maybe 70 bucks. Like, over here in the city, I know they be taxing a little bit, but like, even more, the games themselves would be no more than 40 bucks. Like, so that's another way to get into gaming on the retro side and on a more affordable way. But naturally, with everything going more digital, that's going to be few and far between. You're going to have to really like lean on these publisher and developer sales. You're going to have to lean on these like seasonal sales that really only hit for like 15-20% off. Prices these days really ain't nothing. We're talking about going from like $80 to 75, $74, and it's like, bruh, who's that hurting? Who's that helping? And I wanted to give credit because I've seen quite a few posts from a lot of Sony fans saying that, yo, cancel your subscriptions, vote with your wallet. Yes, those are the type of actions y'all need to be taking. A little too late? Yes, maybe. Hopefully not. But those are the type of energy, that's the type of actions you guys got to be taking, because even on the Nintendo side, bruh, I would not be surprised if the Switch 2 Lite is an all digital handheld console. To be honest, no backwards compatibility. And that makes it bittersweet being on Nintendo because they're really good for preservation, if I'm being honest. Like, you could, till this day, yes, there's a problem that Nintendo first party games maintain their crazy sticker price years and years on end. But for example, to my surprise, what was it, last week or for the summer sale, Breath of the Wild has been on sale. Digitally too. Personally, I picked it up physical from a mom and pop shop like a couple weeks ago, even lower than the $40-ish sticker price they got right now. But just to see that, it's like, okay, let's keep that going. Maybe down the line, some Pokemon will go on sale. Some Mario will go on sale outside of the anniversaries. And that brings me to my bittersweet feeling about the variable pricing Nintendo announced earlier, like last year type, because they're saying that they're going to set the prices based on how they feel the quality of each game. Cool. And they're also saying that the physical first party games will always be a little bit more expensive than the digital. I get it, a little bit more into cost, and thus far, I'm pretty sure Pocopia is considered a third party game because it's like Koei Tecmo, but all the first party games aside from Pocopia have been full on cart. And personally, I'm not buying any game key cards. I don't care how much I love the game. Maybe unless, God forbid, Pokemon Winds and Waves is a key card, I might pick it up. But at that point, you're better off just getting a digital copy unless you're really set on trading in or you rotate your games that often. I don't see the point in getting a key card because it's still taking up internal space and it's taking up external space in the real world. Albeit I've never been a keycard hater, but I do believe that if it does cost more to make these bigger cart sizes and if it's in enough demand, yes, these big companies should be eating the cost. They're already making X amount of profit. Eat the cost. Stop passing the cost on along to us, especially if if you're going to pass the cost on along to the consumers, then you have to be actively listening and attending to those consumers on a need by need basis. That's just how I feel personally. But business is business. Now, back to my earlier point about scalpers going on from Pokemon cards and slowly making their way into the physical gaming space because of this announcement. I believe in dominoes, whether it's already kicking off now or it's in the next, like, let's say 2 weeks or even a month, the longest I give it, just on how fast everything moves. I got a couple content creators on my radar that I'll be peeping, moving funny style on the Pokemon cards, and watch. We gonna talk about it, watch. Wait till that drops. But if you're genuinely concerned for the preservation and like the continuation of physical games, then I say right now more than ever, lock them in. Whether on your Nintendo, Xbox, old PlayStation games, like, yo, go out, hit your, preferably a local mom and pop shop, spend some bread with them, show some love, get a little collection going, because I can only say in due time when we're all completely digital, there's no more physical consoles or like physical backwards compatible consoles, it's going to be nice and it's going to have like, not to hoard or be on some weird stuff, but if you genuinely have a love for the hobby, it's going to build an appreciation to have a real physical library that you could like pass along, hand out, or even just really admire as you go through. Now I want to talk about the pros and cons of my digital library because I'm only speak on what I know first and foremost and the things I genuinely care and have a passion for. You could trust and believe that. And the reason I'm a little half and half with this digital library is because as I mentioned before, the games are getting bigger and memory is getting more expensive. The memory for a terabyte is more than half the console itself. So taking that into account, my future-proofing way of dealing with these games, ironically, is keeping my Switch 1, because so far in the next year or so, we're still getting a lot of Switch 1 releases. As a recording of this, Rhythm Groove Heaven dropped yesterday, and that's a Switch 1 game. Digimon Time Stranger, a game I've been super hyped looking forward to, I'm getting the Switch 1 version. And the reason being is because not only does it have free inherent upgrade packs with the game itself, there's no paid upgrades. If you play it on the Switch 2, you get the option of playing it in 4K 60 performance and quality mode, which is great. Beautiful. Bandai Namco not being greedy. I can appreciate it. On the other hand, you have Sonic Frontier Definitive Edition on Switch 2, which does not come with an upgrade pack. So Sega said you gotta buy this game again, which is wild. But that leaves it up to you as the consumer to really do your due diligence and figure out each game and purchase on a case-by-case basis. So in the meantime, I'm gonna collect the little Switch 1 games and the physical Switch 2 all on cart games that I see and that I really like in the meantime. And eventually, until they stop supporting Switch 1 entirely, I'm going to collect those games and eventually move them over to my OLED. And then my Switch 2 games will all be on my Switch 2. Boom. But I think there's a big misconception between digital ownership and where the lines are crossed and blurred. Because I've asked a few of my homies, like, one, do you think a company can like uninstall a game from your console? And to my surprise, a couple of them are older than me, a couple of them younger than me. But the homie said, yeah, overall. And from the online discourse I've seen in the public, that's kind of where people are with it. And I understand like user agreements, and as long as you don't violate the terms of service, which really just comes to hacking and cheating in online play, I think you're good. Yes, a store might be able to delist a game and stop you from being able to purchase it in the future, but if you've already made that purchase and it's in your archive download history, Nintendo's pretty good for keeping the servers up for you to download the games. So the biggest problem for me is back to coming to space. As the space is getting more expensive with the games, it's kind of like, it makes the selection of what's worth playing even tighter. And a lot of these games not making the cut, my boy.